Alrighty then. There, there we
Well,
are. Intro song
one of
done.
those people.
Unmuting myself on Discord done. Transition on OBS done. I think. Yeah, done. Here we go. Episode 36. What is up, everyone? That's gonna be my intro for like my podcast, like forever now. Episode 36. Here we are. For those watching, thank you for tuning
Mm.
in, per usual. I'm joined today by some a lovely individual in Kemp. Yeah.
Yep, yep,
Oh, yeah, thank you. I'm the lovely individual.
yep,
I thought it was Kemp for a second. I'm glad it was me this time.
yeah.
Thanks, Neon.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Continue.
Cora.
Kemp's like, keep on talking. I'll get you back.
Keep going.
Keep it going. Keep it going.
What what more nice things do you have about Kemp? That list wants to know.
He'll.
Don't worry, man. Everyone knows that Neon drinks his pee.
Yeah. Hey. See. I told you. He's ready, dude. He has it on deck, dude. Uh. Anyways, so there we are, joined by Yoonji and Kemp this week. Of course, Kemp. I wouldn't say I expect him to be here, but he's here per usual. And Yoonji, like, second time been on the podcast. Welcome back, Yoonji. How you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing great. Besides, yeah, the usual things going on in the news right now, but overall doing great.
Awesome. So, Kemp, how are you doing? How's your day?
Um, Pretty good. I got a haircut this week.
Ooh, personal person. You went out to a barber salon. Where'd you get it?
It's a barber, and then they like sprayed my hands before I walked in, and they took my temperature.
Oh,
Dang,
that's
wait,
great.
for real?
Yeah, dude, it's the one by Bank of America.
Wait, oh, damn. Okay,
Yeah,
cool. I mean,
and
That's
the guy
good.
the guy cutting my hair had like a face mask and everything.
dude, wait, is your guy the older looking guy with gray hair?
Yeah, we talked about this.
Yeah, see, he's cool. I like him.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Well,
like him.
I try to get I didn't get him this time, but I usually try to get him.
Oh, okay. But yeah, would make sense. Everyone, I feel like it would be weird not to have those procedures, or
Yeah,
at least like the hand cleansing and masks.
it,
I wouldn't
it,
expect like the temperature thing to be a normal.
it took my temperature. I was like, what the fuck are you doing to me?
Oh my gosh.
It
All right.
it does make sense because I know a lot of essential workers in supermarkets, they have to take their temperature. But I think it's the rule that I think it's just best practice that if you're going to be within 30 minutes, close proximity to someone, take the temperature to be safe. Did you wear a mask too?
Yeah, I wore a mask.
When he went to go like to cut your hair by like your ear, did you have to like hold your mask on your face while he took out the
Yeah,
strap? Yeah.
I like eventually just took off my mask.
Mm.
Oh. Okay. Interesting. So,
Yeah,
I,
I saw everyone with their mask on, and I was like, this guy was like kind of struggling because my hair was like really long. So
oh.
I just took it off, and he didn't say anything. So I was just like, all right.
I mean, he can't. I mean, he's like midway cutting your hair. Is he just gonna stop? you know?
Yeah, like tell me to put my mask back on. I'm just like, hey.
Okay. All right. That's good.
Right?
All right. That's good. Well, that's interesting because it's like I don't know what quote unquote best practice is outside of like wearing a mask and everyone washing their hands and like I don't expect people to always have the temperature gauges, but that's good. That's
Mm.
good. I appreciate knowing that they do that.
Yeah, and then
Um.
Yeah.
I was gonna go to, like Target and then like the bank afterwards, and there's like a line in both places. I was just like, never mind.
Oh. Okay. What time did you go? Like midday or something?
Yeah, it was like 2 o'clock or something.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, um, just because this is Breaking Point Part Two, that was a rough transition. We're just gonna get sort of into it, but Breaking Point Part Two, talking more about the recent Black Lives Matter movements and all the traction it's gained in the past couple of weeks. Before we get into that, some of it can get a little heavy, a little heated, a little emotional. So I wanted to start off this week with a little wholesome, hopefully wholesome icebreaker. Um, so this icebreaker is one I'm taking from Always Open from Rooster Teeth. Um, they call it Cheers to That. So pretty much you just say something that's been good in your life that's been happening or recently. And if you have a drink, we would cheers to that. Raise your glass. I'm stealing their bit completely. But if you don't have a drink, whatever, it's all good. But either way, um, we just want to get some wholesome positivity out there, and celebrate what is good, you know. So, either of you want to go first by any chance?
My
That,
haircut that I got,
that,
because it's like freaking like sweltering hot right now, and if I didn't get a haircut, I would probably be like dead before I even get on this podcast.
damn. All right, cool, cool. Cheers to that, man. I actually took a drink from my bottle, my water bottle. Nice.
Not the jar of pee.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Kemp.
Damn it. Already with the callback, dude. Damn it.
And dude, where's
We
your
were
jar?
talking about this beforehand.
Oh no.
Under your bed? That's where I keep my jar of pee.
Is it like in your mini fridge or?
My mini
You got
fridge
a
is
mini
actually
fridge?
unplugged, but I should plug it in for my jar of pee because it is summer.
Yeah.
Yeah. You wanted to keep it
Nice and cool.
stable.
Mm-hmm.
Nice and cold, yes. I
That's
like mine nice and room temperature, but to each their own.
crisp, refreshing. I like the little the change in flavor. All right, no, I'm kidding. Anyways,
Jesus.
Yoonji, do you have any positivity you'd like to share as of recent?
I well, in part with being related to the topic that we're talking about, I'm very optimistic on how young people are being aware of this issue, being empowered by this issue, and just being informed the best way that they can to change when there's new circumstances that causes them to, and just recognizing their own implicit bias and having difficult conversations with their parents, depending on how they grew up. A lot of really great efforts and great actions that I see. So, big cheers to that, guys.
Cheers to that. I like it. I like
Cheers.
the optimism. I like it. But we'll get into this later. I do have a devil's advocate point that I want to talk about that later.
Mm.
Now that you brought that up, I'll talk about that later. Um, and for me, my cheers to that, I finally got my own solo credit card this past week. I'm
Oh
finally
yeah.
an adult, sorta.
Nice.
I mean, like, because I've had credit cards, but I've always been like joint holders with like my sisters or something, so like
Mm.
they help build my credit. But this is like my first time actually getting my own solo credit card. It's weird because I got a credit card after I got a car. I don't know. Anyways, but I'm just like, how does this work? How do I build credit,
Yeah.
Google? Those,
Cheers to that. Spend
yeah,
those points.
I know.
Those
No, please,
points.
please don't steal my credit card information.
Well, that right. It's very secure nowadays. You're very safe.
Oh man, I hope so. I really hope so. It's not like my
So I used
my.
to work. Yeah,
Oh, well, go ahead.
I used to work at PayPal, and it was within the credit card industry. So I know that you're coming from a previous corporate insider. You're safe, Neon.
Okay,
And
cool, cool. All right, awesome. I'm safe, guys.
spend those points.
I'm safe.
So what's the expiration date on it? And what's the last three numbers of the security? Because
Oh
it's
my
safe.
God, because it's safe, right? Because it's safe. It's five
MasterCard or
five
Visa?
five, and then the last three numbers, or the expiration date is uh January 2055. Okay.
Alright,
Yeah,
flip it.
very safe.
Write it down, guys.
I
Write it
just,
down.
yeah, I just
Um.
bought a Tesla truck with your money now. Thank you.
Oh my God, Tesla Cybertruck? Hell no. I mean, I would consider it, but nah. Yeah, I'm okay. Not Tesla Cybertruck. Um. So yeah, that was a little positivity I just want to do. I might actually end up doing that for almost podcast going forward. We'll see. Depends on the topic. Um, so if I
Mhm.
start with that icebreaker, you know the topic's probably going to be a little bit heavier. Um, so there you go. Yeah, we're just gonna get right into the actual topic now. So Breaking Point Part Two, like I said, we're getting another week of traction being gained for the Black Lives Matter movement, like I've said before. So, um, I brought Yoonji onto this podcast because she does have a background related to this topic. So, I mean, I'm just gonna let Yoonji go wild on this for a little bit. Let her talk about what you do, what she does. Um, if anything points that questions you want to ask us along the way, I'll interject and ask questions or like pose different points along the way. Kemp, you too. Um,
Yep.
so I mean, Yoonji, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Well, I just wanted to introduce my background a little bit and why that has relevance. We always talk about like what are our credentials, what are our sort of expertise in it, and the most important thing in my case is that I am an immigrant. I came to the U.S. when I was 5 years old. From China. We settled in suburb in LA that was majority were minorities, so Latino, lower income white people, immigrants that came the same as us with nothing in our pockets with except us family members and our thirst for trying to find success in the US. We were all just poor, working class people in the suburb, just 20 minutes away from downtown LA. So some people just have this perception of LA as wealth, but it's actually very culturally diverse and lots of small communities of poor working class people. And I'm going to say poor a lot because it has a lot of importance on why racism exists and the relevance that it has for Black Lives Matter and our current economy right now. And I personally have been in underfunded schools. I've seen police presence at an early age in those schools as a source of violence and intimidation. And I just saw those effects as very inconducive for a child to grow up in, first of all, and second, for a student to learn in. So as my family moved to nicer areas, still within the same city, same 5 mile radius. We just moved to different districts with much better schools, and my I just saw a different treatment of minorities. I saw more white people, more rich Asians, and then when I came to Berkeley, it was complete culture shock of I finally met rich Asian people, and I found that it was the more common case that a lot of Berkeley students were from South Bay, were from Cupertino. It was the first time I met Asian people where their parents went to college because my mom barely finished middle school and my dad barely finished high school. So it was definitely that sacrifice what little we had in China to achieve something bigger in the US, and that was our American dream. What I learned in school is that I loved politics because my community was very active in it. We knew our neighbors were poor, so we just always helped each other out. And part of that is being friendly with each other and knowing your neighbor. So that knowing your neighbor and things like that. So we were very involved with our own city politics and our own community politics. Our local newspaper was very great in sharing information, and we were all aware. So that definitely increased my passion for political science and politics. And then my dad's side of the family, they're affiliated in the Progressive Caucus of the Democratic National Committee or the California Democratic Committee. Came from just my own experience of being an immigrant, navigating the education system and the political system, studying it in school, and then having another side of my family being kind of the experts in it and getting mentoring from them to just kind of take my interest in political science and activism to a whole nother step and something more from activism and advocacy. Now I want to get into the policy making realm and seeing what are the solutions that we can come up with. Then my personal background is just I've been in tech for all of my career after graduation, and I've been in big companies and small startups, and I've seen how inequality, how racism can be a factor in the working world, especially in the tech industry where we're being known for being very liberal and very democratic. But this is another case I want to dive into maybe this time or another, but about performative wokeness. And that's a problem as well. But that's kind of my background and life experience that kind of motivated me to have advocacy for poor minorities and the working class, and a better understanding of when I understood Black history, and just all of those values aligned with me in, standing by them for their cause, because I have felt the effects in my capacity. I never know what a Black person will go through, and I never will because I am Asian and I have this privilege. I have felt the consequences that similar to what they go through, and that are all the similarities in the problems of inequality, of just bad education, things like that. So it just makes me a very easy ally for Black Lives Matter. And then, of course, um, the honor of having friends that are Black is that you stand by them 100% no matter what the battle is. Yeah, so that's my background.
Right. Nice. Nice. So, yeah, the obviously that was like pretty much like a general political side of like your life story, anyways. So let me, man, I have like so many questions lined up. I don't know which one to ask first. Uh, um, so
I'm here to break it down.
okay, awesome, awesome. So uh, let's go with a term that I want to discuss a little bit more and unpack on like how you view things, and your perspective of this term per se. So when you say ally, right? There's always a lot of different contexts it can be used in. Even though the definition more or less means the same, but in the context of, let's say, poor minorities and in the Black Lives Matter movement, what is an ally? What does it mean to be an ally?
In this case, for Black Lives Matter, so the term ally, it's being thrown around. There's no good definition for it because everyone is an ally in their own way. We want to be, and as activists, we want to be inclusive for if anyone at any stage of their kind of awakening to be more socially aware of these. Be an ally, in my definition, is have recognized you have this implicit bias, you've done racist things, you've had racist thoughts, you've had this unconscious bias in you, you've recognized it, you identified it, and now the start of your journey in this education to learn more is when I consider someone an ally. Then everything on top of that, any active effort that someone makes to learn more, to understand, and to be in the most helpful way to understand, whether it be to amplify Black voices, being a supporting voice for your Black colleagues, or even in your position of power. So let's say if you're a recruiter to hire someone that's Black, or not, or to understand their backstory to their success, and how to judge that as a plus rather than color blindedness. Any step of what you think is the best way to help poor minority class, whether it be Black, Latino, Southeast Asian, in what way that you want to have a conscious effort, that is when I think that they are an ally.
Nice, nice. So I was actually listening to some other podcasts in the past couple of weeks about like what is an ally and how to be supportive as well. Um, there was a point that you brought up that that you said like acknowledging, right? Acknowledging people are different, the diversity in like let's say the workplace or in your community, and what you said is like being recognizing that versus just being colorblind. Um, because there was the point that was made in the podcast I was listening to was saying that, being colorblind, you try to treat everyone the same, right? But that does what they said was that it does give equal treatment to people, but that doesn't acknowledge the different upbringings and different experiences that people had growing up as a person, being a person of color, different socioeconomic backgrounds, their
Mhm.
own like life experiences, right? Just because you are quote unquote colorblind and you don't see color doesn't necessarily mean it's helping the situation, is what I was listening to. I mean, that was just a point that I just wanted to bring up, and and
Mhm.
I heard you say, so I thought that was just really interesting. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, I don't ask Kemp this because we grew up in the same city, anyways. So for
Well, actually,
oh
I
yeah,
wanted to interrupt just for a second because you brought up a really great point and a very great consideration a lot of people have. It's that people want to be colorblind, and that is how we were raised to just treat everyone as an equal. But what we are seeing right now is that the treatment from the world is not equal. So have to say we have to not say I don't see color, but rather we have to change our mind of thinking to say I do see color and I understand your background and I understand your struggles.
right, right,
Understand that it is not at the same baseline of privilege and rights that I have. I understand that your struggle point to get at my level in front of me right now, it was met by much more barriers. I see it, I hear it, and I will use it in my considerations and
mm,
in my behavior. Like it's more about that active compassion, that active consideration to be like, I know you're not asking for special treatment. I will give it because I know you have a lot of pride. I know you want to be treated equal. Know that I understand what you had to go through. I am an ally and I will support that and be your advocate in life.
right, right. Oh, I see.
And
Nice. Yeah, that definitely makes more sense because in the sense of, you say how some people were raised, it's like, people try to be equal and treat each other, but like the sense that this also starts off just like in kids, it's in being instilled into kids growing up in how they were raised in a very young age, I think.
um,
Well, like the word that you said that stuck out, what you said recently was being active about it, right? We're not just being passively everyone's the same. It's like actively understanding things that's going on in the world around us, not and just being open-minded to learn about the people and the events that's just going on. So um, yeah, that was yeah. That was a very good point. I just wanted to talk about. So relating to Kemp, because we grew up in the same area. We're both young Filipino men that grew up in Carson. I mean, well, you moved here, you immigrated here. So I mean, and then you had a different university experience and myself as well. So for you, what is your like take on just to stay on topic here, being an ally. Because, last week on the podcast you said that, you wanted to be like a silent supporter, but, I just want to delve into your mindset a little bit more.
Um, yeah, I'll stick with that. But about being a silent supporter, I mean, an ally is like it's like lots of. I mean, there's like many different kinds of meaning to it. For me, it's like I'm not gonna be like one that's gonna actively go out there and like protest with people, but like if there's like opinions that people want, um, I'm here to support the anti-racist movements. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't think I'm like a big voice in these kinds of topics.
Okay, cool. So, I mean, the reason why I wanted you to just like talk about that was another point that Yoonji brought up in her little introduction was, you said, like you said, we may or may not get into it, but I want to get into it. It's on my notes. Is like, uh, being an more or less an active supporter, voicing your opinion at points and like, being doing small actions to with the good intention to help out in this movement versus performative activism. And um, another term that I heard in different podcasts I was listening to was virtue signaling. Um, yeah, so it's like, I'm doing this because, everyone else is doing it. I don't want to seem like I'm a racist by not saying anything, by not um,
I have many
actively
stories
showing.
on that.
Yes.
Very instances that happened in the last few days pertaining to that. I have very good case studies on that.
Case studies. Oh, okay, cool. So,
Um,
all right, we'll get into that real soon, but just to get like the general point for those listening who might not understand like these concepts or these terms, pretty much performative activism and virtue signaling. You're doing something not because for the cause, but to show to save, but you're doing it to more or less save face to or to show that you sort of got sucked
you
into the
care.
flow. Yeah, to show that you care,
Yeah.
but it's that usually happens to people who aren't um let's say not as passionate about the movement because everyone has a different experience and emotional involvement with these kind of things. Along
Mm.
with that, Kemp brought up a point earlier this week was like um, corporations and how they are um, what their actions are
Yeah.
during all these times. So I'll get into Kemp's point a little bit later, but Yoonji, I want to let you go first about like these case studies and what you want to talk about in this little subtopic.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so it's on this. So let me organize my thoughts real quick. I did write some notes down, but this is very important. So, performative wokeness. Um, I think just as a backstory, so so I studied political science. I've studied social justice and civil rights ever since I would say 13 or 14.
Hmm.
I've had teachers that were minorities, that were poor, and they were activists, and they taught me all of these things that were alternative from what they had to teach me in the daytime coming from our textbooks. They gave me extra readings. I talked to them. They told me stories of their life, their experiences. And from a very early age, I very passionate about civil rights, very passionate about politics and how people are successful together. So I think the reasons why I'm vocal was that my survival and my success was because of that. I got into Berkeley because of my activism and kind of my awareness of my privilege and aware of injustices at an early age. That was how I was able to articulate all of that in my personal statement, which I think got me in. And uh, that was something where I discovered my passion for it very early on. So it just kind of set me up with those values to be an active ally my entire life, cascading up when I was going to school, from when I was working, from when I had to build a team and lead something at a company. It Those instances were always ingrained in my head because I had a lot of racism against me. I had a lot of policies in schools that I thought was unfair because we were all poor minorities barely speaking English. I saw all of that as kind of an injustice against my American dream. I saw all of those civil rights violations as an injustice against what America promised me and my family. It's definitely a very like fundamental value to me, and that's inspired me to be active. But I don't expect everyone to have faced racism ever since they stepped foot in the US. I don't expect anyone to have that. No one should go through that in the perfect world, but the people that do go through that, they're the ones being the vocal activists. They're the ones being community leaders. They're the ones mentoring and giving back because uh,
Right.
they've had a mentor that gave them that when they were in a low point. So this is going back to, we have to recognize our privilege. We have to recognize what we hold as a benefit got
Right.
us what we attribute our success to. And that's the reason why you have allies that understand that
Right.
do that and then do more.
Right.
Everyone is at a different level. That's
Mhm.
why I don't think that there's something called a silent ally. I think that allyship it is something active you have to do, whether it be telling your friends, hey, don't say the N word, and this is the reason why. But that active activism is that active part of correcting behavior that you
Mhm.
went through when you were younger.
Right.
So
Okay.
yeah, whether it be telling your friends to don't do that because it's ignorant and this is why, or it could be anything, or going out and organizing a protest and rallying people together and getting people on the news to speak your voice, or being a filmmaker, telling a story that was otherwise unheard before. Uh, there's just very various forms of protest. So when people say it's performative wokeness, I, I criticize performative wokeness against people that have the power. So if they're an influencer on Instagram, if they post that little black box, then they delete it after, and then they don't put a resource on Black Lives Matter after, I think that's performative wokeness. Doing it
Mm.
just to get people off of your back. What is the helpful
Right.
thing?
Right.
Maybe add your favorite Black influencer to be like, hey, these are my favorite Black artists, Black influencers that I take inspiration from. Let me promote them. Let me use my influence at no matter what
Mm.
capacity to bring awareness to their success, elevate them
Right. Right.
because
Right.
everyone
Okay.
can at any level.
So before we get into deeper of this topic, I wanna hit a couple points that you talked about. So one of the ones that I want to talk about is understanding your um, privilege, right? Understanding your
Mm,
position. So this ties back to what we talked about is like, being active about learning the world around you, but I think that also goes back to understanding where you came from, or from an individual or even like close friend and familial kind of standpoint, right?
mm,
Because it's like there's a lot of people out there that, like you said, might not have experienced it, and they don't understand the impact that the injustices, the different societal, economical, political levels that people have been impacted by, right?
mm,
So the reason why this is so interesting to me, because myself included, I would say I haven't faced too many injustices, right? That's why there are people who are similar to me that'll be like, oh, why should I care about this movement, right? I've never faced these injustices. I've
mm.
never seen this racism, right? Why should this be important to me? I think understanding that is also a big point in having I wouldn't say having a voice, but like
Mm.
understanding like how you on an individual level play a
Should
role in
care
all of this.
and
Right.
play a role. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Making knowing what to do after is always the hardest part because it's like I have this education, I have all of these data. What do I do next? And how do I use my power? How do I use my privilege?
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
part of it is knowing that you have power and can list out because I've done some privilege tests that some very great psychology professors that were very socially woke shared with us. We numerically show just and we would do these practices to kind of visualize our privilege. But one of these things is like I looked at my privilege. I am an East Asian woman. Okay, I am light skinned. I am a light skinned East Asian woman.
Mhm.
Okay, I I am attractive. Okay, I will say that I do get a lot of privileges because of that. People help me on the street. People give me a lot of extra help that honestly I don't even need. They want to because they see me as someone that is worthy of being helped with. The most hated person in the US is a black woman because they're
Mm.
black and because they're women. Women I've always been seen as the
That makes
underclass
sense.
against men. Because for black men, they have being a man and privileges to that. A black woman, not
Right.
only
Of
is she
course.
black,
Mhm.
most hated race, in the United States and in the world, is also a woman, the most hated gender between the two. So it's like when we look at why we have to care about Black women and Black people, is that look at how the world is treating one that they hate.
Right, right,
They
right,
are
right.
keeping them from getting wealthy. They're keeping them from getting educated. They're keeping them from succeeding and squashing it from a systemic level and hiding it under the guise of formal rules. Who are the people
Mm.
making the rules? White people, white middle-aged men with the privilege and without that experience to put themselves in the shoes of the most hated people in the world.
That's
Know their experience.
hmm.
Why people should care about Black Lives Matter is that if we stand behind the most hated group in the world, we fight for their humanity, fight for their human rights, everyone above them that has marginalized, has felt racism in lighter instances, and that's when everyone will succeed when we bring up status of a forcefully oppressed group of people, which is the Black people. Because then
Right.
everyone after, Latinos are going to get treated better. These Asians are going to get treated better. These Asians are going to get treated better. Women are going to get treated better. Then all the other minorities above that are going to get treated better once we
Mm.
redistribute that power back and empower everyone to be our objective best. We're going to raise the standard of excellence of what American people can achieve when we don't bring people down, when we lift everyone up. You're only going to create resources for everyone else.
Okay. No, okay. So, man, I'm just gonna be quoting like a bunch of like podcasts and like opinions that I've been listening to. So this entire podcast.
Yes,
That's
yes,
so that's like
please,
because
yes.
I'm trying to get a better understanding, better grasp of it. So 2 points that I want to bring up. I mean, Kemp, do you have anything before I go on my spiel?
Go ahead. You can go first. Go ahead.
Okay. So the one thing that um what you talked about like was you know uh raising up the standard, right? And there's always been the point where it's like Black Lives Matter, right? And then people who just don't understand what's going on, right? Or like racist or just ignorant or whatever the case may be, right? They'll counteract with the point all lives matter, right? And I'm just like, look, I get it, right? But to the point, it's like if we can, like you said, like if we can raise whatever floor we have, right? Because we understand what the ceiling in our country is, right? You want to be rich, you want to be have power or an influence in this country, whether that's form of monetary, political, or social influence, right? There's the fact that um, the ceiling is very high, but then like you said, it's like you know, for the example of like let's say like you said, Black women, right? They are the most hated in the U.S., right? So
They're the most hated in the world,
oh, there you go.
actually. Yeah.
So and then one point that I got from listening uh Timothy DeLaGhetto's podcast was with Ricky Shucks is what he said is like if Black Lives Matter, right? If this movement, if we win, why isn't this seen as a win for everyone? Like
Yes,
that's one
that's
of the
a great
biggest.
point.
When he said that, I went, dude, that just blew my
Oh,
mind. I'm like, he's right. I was like, and yeah, and then you said it. I'm like, dude, this makes so much sense.
yes,
Like, it's like
yes,
I get it because it's like we gotta at minimum tr- level out the playing field as much as we can, you know, but then I realized if we level out the playing field, doesn't this help everyone around us?
yes,
Like the standard of living, the treatment, like it'll be so much better for everyone in the larger picture. And I'm just I didn't think about that because I was privileged enough not to have to go through like some of these struggles, and I went, dude, what the hell?
yeah,
Why is
yeah,
this? Oh my god! I was just so
yeah.
mind blown when I heard that.
No, and
So
I think it's great that you're recognizing that privilege and knowing that, it's a privilege to not experience that. right? It's a privilege
Right.
to not know all of the things that are discomforting of the world because you can live a comfortable life and be happy. You can do that, but other people cannot. So it's very discomforting when we learn all of this, and it's like it gets worse.
Right, exactly.
It
And
gets
then
much worse.
it's like I can go around and do my thing, right? I don't have to worry about um you know being judged and being scared for my life just because of the way I look, right? There the risk of my own well-being isn't as high as, let's say, a man of similar stature that's just a black man. Like, I think, you know there's always been that example, right? It's like, what if you're pulled over. Now I'm taking this from um fucking David Toph's podcast, right? If you were pulled over by a police car, routine traffic stop, right? And you had a button to become a black man, would you press that button? Most
No,
people would not press that
never,
button, right? But
ever.
then, right? But then and then they brought up the
We know
exact
this. Everyone knows
exactly.
this.
Right, but then if on the same point, they gave the counter argument, right? If the same exact routine traffic stop, right? Would you, and you had a button to press, and you became just a white man, would you press that button?
Hell yes, I want to press it right now.
See, that's the
I'm
that's
wanting to press that.
like, if you know the reason why you are pressing or not pressing those buttons, then you should be able to understand the greater context of what's happening in not just the U.S. society, but like around the world, right? Because that's just racism, very simplified, in a very simplified case.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I had the privilege, like I had that experience of recognizing racism in the worst forms when I was younger. There was a lot of hate against Asians. There was a lot of class conflict, as we say that. It was always Latino against Asians. We were all poor working class. Never looked at who's the CEO of Walmart that just came into our poor town, making everyone work for $7 an hour. We never addressed that. We just addressed that, hey, this is a person in front of us that looks different. They are probably the one fucking up our lives because we try to personalize it, and that's why we get this racism.
Right,
I
right.
felt the worst part when I was younger, so that as I grew up in high school and college and in the workplace, I was able to recognize even the little most overt part because I've seen how bad humanity uh, has treated me with racism, and that's me being a light-skinned East Asian attractive woman. I have felt that. I know how bad it could be for me, and it's not even in the tip of the iceberg of what they treat Black people. And already, I have been trained to recognize that in every instance of my life, so that I don't repeat that, and that I
Right,
actively fight against that. So this is the
right.
influence of talking about race, understanding our privilege at a very young age, because I felt like I didn't have privilege before, but I realized I'm an East Asian attractive woman. The things that I have got was because it was given to me and given by permission by white people. They
Mm,
accepted me.
right,
Okay.
right, right. Because
I had to apply, I had to work my ass off, and then they finally said yes. They awarded me that privilege.
mm,
Then after that, I use it as a fuel to make sure that when I'm asking for a raise, when I'm fighting for that position I want, that I actively fight for it, working within the rules that was promised of me. And they have that social contract that if you study your ass off, we'll reward you by being at a good college. We'll reward you with being a good job. That's the social contract that was entered when I decided to dedicate my free time to studying to meet standard of what people give
right,
privilege.
right, right.
And so
Man.
I have first not have privilege and been rewarded for it and have felt shut out when I wanted and asked for more that I felt entitled to. Yeah, that's how racism progresses. And that's what's reaching a breaking point for a lot of people and why a lot of minorities should care.
Right.
Because, you know, you're not sharing the power, you're only asking the white man. The mayor of SF said it, and she is a Black woman, and she is very She's very progressive. She says, I am the mayor. I have this power. Work with me, and I will not let the slave owners, the white people, give me what I deserve. I will fight and ask for it, and I will not beg for it from the
Mm,
slave owners.
right.
So this is a woman of power that is a mayor, that is Black, that is being extremely vocal about calling a thing a thing. She is saying it 100% because, and this is my last point, that the owners of the LA Clippers a few years ago
Right. I remember
was
that.
outed because he made a comment akin to the players being his slaves and exploiting
Yeah.
them.
You remember that? Yeah, I remember that.
He made a
Right.
comment about being a slave owner. He got outed. This is showing that our acceptance as minorities in the white world, the default world, is contingent on what white people want us to be. Either we're going to entertain them on the basketball courts, writing their code, making them money in their corporations. They will do everything to make us sure we work for them.
Mm,
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. So that's what I wanted to bring up. What Neron was saying earlier was who what podcast were you referring to when you said if we support this Black Lives Matter movement, it'll be a win for everyone.
Right. That was
Right?
No Chaser podcast by Timothy Delicado and Ricky
Right.
Shucks. Right.
Yeah. So there's always going to be an exception. In this case, it's going to be the middle class, upper class white people. What happens if this Black Lives Matter movement is no, it's I would say like I said completed is like probably like the wrong word, but like if it's already
He's in
picking
his
up
goals.
steam, yeah, if it reaches its goal,
Yeah.
no, nothing happens. I mean, I don't think anything really happens. Or if anything, it's a minus for
Gonna
them because
elevate white people even further.
how
Gonna
does that elevate?
elevate the white middle class even higher. Because
How?
if you're white middle class, you're always gonna have that privilege. You're always gonna have access to wealth. You're not taking away the power from white people. You're empowering all the minorities.
But if
You're
you're
having all of the shift move up. When I say we're taking the power away from the people, I'm talking about white supremacists, big capitalists, the Jeff Bezos of the world that hoard their billions, now trillions, taking away from the 1% and redistributing back to the 99. The people that are on the upper side of that 99, you're going to get even richer because it's going to be distributed across everyone.
right, that's what I'm saying. That's the exception. It's just these upper class white people with all the money, with all the influence, all the power. They don't want that because if you even the playing field, if you bring back more to the 99%,
Yeah.
it's gonna take away their money. It's gonna take away their influence.
But
That
you're
that
taking
that,
from
that
the 1%. The 1% is only comprised of
yeah,
about
but
10
the
people.
1% has like 70% of the power, right?
Yes. So this is why it's important for everyone to have collective action, to have a voice at the table, because 1%, the billionaires, there's probably five people that I can name, 5 people on top of that list that controls probably 60% of the wealth.
Right. Right.
Okay,
You're right. But
one
I think.
voice
Right.
controlling everything.
I
But once
think.
you have a collective voice of the rest of the 99, hold politicians accountable, hold businesses accountable, and say, hey, we're not going to buy from the racist Wendy's. Starve them out. Collectively, everyone get on the same page. Do that one small action, and then starve the corporations where it hurts. Buy
Right. Right.
money,
Right.
buy
Right.
Right. Yeah.
consumerism.
I,
This is what I was saying before with Neuron when I was talking about the big corporations.
right. Right. So the reason I think we're on two different pages right now because from what I'm hearing, I think we all understand Yoonji, we understand your point, right? Like to give it back to the lower 99, right? I think we all understand that, right, Kemp?
Yep.
Right. I think Kemp's point, I think he just wanted to prove the counterpoint was that saying that the statement that's like if black people win, that everyone wins. But he's just saying that the counterpoint is that not everyone's winning, right? There
The-
is the 1% is the one that the 1%, the upper of the 99 are the people who are
Yeah.
losing. Like,
I mean,
right?
yeah,
Yeah,
More or less.
I definitely understand that. And the only people that are going to lose is that 1%. Only about many individual people are going to
Right.
lose.
Okay.
Individual people for the sake of the rest of the billions. Mathematically, I would take that because it's unfair that they have all of this power to force people to do in their interest
Got it.
for a very long time already.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
so I
So,
so I think for that to so I think for that to actually make, I mean, to work in like the long run, it would have to be a bigger change than just racism. It had to be like a more governmental change.
Yeah, so this
right.
is one of the big topics that is coming up, and I'll share this podcast that sums it up perfectly about how the root cause of everything, if we break it down in the most fundamental parts, is that capitalism.
Right.
Right.
Right?
Right.
We've exerted our capitalistic abilities to the extent where we're forsaking American lives to create a poor class of workers to work the low wage, and we're just using Black people to keep people the poorest. Then, when Black people are killed and have died from COVID because they are the most affected, when the poor Blacks are done and dead by the white people, then they're going to move up. They're going to get the Latinos to be the poorer workers, and once they're done, they're going to get the Southeast Asians. They're only going to move up in their categorization of races to find another poor class of workers. This is a capitalism problem. Racism is just one of the modes that they get that cheap labor.
Right. 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 In terms of like governmental stuff, right? And just like the placement of these kind of like classes, right? These racial hierarchies, you could call it, or even just like
Mm.
economic hierarchies, right? Um, you know, I don't know. Obviously, I feel like Yoonji would know this because you're in political science, right? But this all stems from basically, hundreds of years ago of people putting of arbitrary, more or less arbitrary uh, plots of land and areas, with whether they deemed it was profitable or not, right? And then obviously, the more rich and wealthier people would move to a certain area, and and whoever wasn't be able to afford that, which is usually, minorities in that case, were usually
Yeah,
moved
it's
to
redlining.
exactly redlining. I brought that up in last week's podcast. Is basically that's what happens, and then in those poor areas, right? You know, pretty much I don't like I said, this is like a lot of things, a lot of information that people might not be aware of that. So I'll try and break
It's
it
a
down
lot, definitely a lot.
so I'll try to break it down the way it was explained to me in like one of those simple videos, right? So basically everything is just resource based in a community.
Mm.
You're For an example, an educational public system, right, is funded by the property tax of the community. If the community is wealthier, obviously the schooling, the funding for that school will be higher, right? You'll get more resources, you'll get smaller class sizes because you're able to hire more teachers, you're able to have more extracurriculars and things like that. Whereas let's say the poorer communities might not have that ability because the property taxes aren't as high. The schooling isn't getting as much funded. They might not have
Can't
the
pay good teachers with a competitive salary.
exactly
Can't pay good
competitive
teachers now.
teachings, the equipment, the extracurriculars, and just like the services that a different wealthier community might not have, because this is all based in history of the of how things were redlining in the sense that how someone drew a map and just lined out specific areas of a city or a county or whatever,
Mm.
how they deemed it profitable, how they deemed it valuable, right? And then suddenly, and those people in those cheaper, not as wealthy areas, they're usually the more of the laborers of society, right? They're always the ones who are asked to travel distances and do the not as desirable jobs, right? Because
Yeah,
they're not
black
going to be
and brown
paid jobs.
people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, this all just leads to um how do I say this? This all leads just back to like this was all because people wanted money. And if you see this
It's
into
all systemic.
exactly.
Like you make rules. It's like you have a goal and then you make the rules to get to your goal. And that's exactly what happened.
Exactly.
For
Because
they had a goal of maximizing their earnings, being as rich as fuck, and then they had another goal of getting rid of the black and brown people. So the fact that they
right.
redlined just just hit all of the boxes that they were trying to achieve all at one point. That's how
Right.
you have a racist law
And
that seems colorblind in paper, but does horrible things to people at their different class levels, basically.
right. And then just to bring it back into more context of today's society, right? Like Carson, we were not I still don't see us as like a rich city, right? Camp, what do you think about like our current city standing right now, personally?
We're urbanizing, but I don't definitely don't think we're rich.
Right, exactly. So
Yeah.
this goes back to like, the larger point that, people still talk about, but it's not as like prevalent because there's other bigger
Yeah.
topics would probably be gentrification, right? Because
Gentrification. Yep.
exactly, right. Because like people go back into these communities, these not as wealthy communities, and you go, hey, you know what? Maybe we can make this profitable, right?
Let's
And
put
then
a
they go back in this
Starbucks
community.
there.
Yeah, let's put a
Yeah.
Starbucks there, dude.
Put a Walmart there and
Let's
have everyone work minimum wage and shut down all of the small businesses. Walmart is the biggest
exactly,
globalizer.
exactly. Then and it's like in the context of Carson, right? If you're from Carson, you're listening to this podcast, and you've grown up here for in my case, the last 20 years, right? Kemp, you've been here almost 20 years, right? When you move here? 7, right?
Pretty much.
Almost 20, right?
Yeah, almost 20 years.
Little under 20. So but you didn't have to be like a little kid to know this, right? You've been around Carson for years since you were that age. You understand that like if you're in Carson, like Carson Mall didn't look as nice as it did now. We didn't have that. We didn't have that nice place with the IHOP before. I mean, there was an IHOP, but it didn't have that nice apartment. We didn't have the
Mm.
hiccups. We didn't have these new, nice looking apartment buildings, and like they're and then they renovated like Carson Street for like however long, many years it
Yeah,
took them, right? They're trying to
they
make our
kind of
city.
tore
Yeah,
up.
it took forever though because of like their own problems in contracting, but that's a different issue. But anyways, it's like that businesses are finally realizing it's like, oh, we should move into like more suburban areas. There's business here that people can um, would enjoy, and we can make money off of it, right? So,
So that brings up wait, no, okay, sorry, continue.
oh,
Sorry, I cut you off.
no. So you're good. So basically, people are gonna spend money here because that's where they see profit nowadays. Because just because there's a working class that wants to spend their money somehow, some way. They open up businesses because um, they they want to make money, but then that also raises a property tax, yeah, because property values are raised, but at the same time that also gentrification, it makes it harder for that same working poor, uh, middle lower class people to be
Yeah,
able to make
gentrification.
that living. You know what I mean? To find the housing because once gentrification happens, everything becomes a little bit more expensive when they weren't. Let's say a couple years ago. So I mean that was my general point.
Yeah.
So
That's a great point because it shows that when capitalism is the top priority, it becomes a war. You're going into a different territory, a poorer territory, right? You're bringing your capitalistic values there. You're overtaking you're killing off all of the small businesses. You are gentrifying and you're creating a change, making everything more expensive. It's kind of like the spoils of war. And who are the victims at the end of it? Black and brown people that kicked out. Because the
right,
case
right,
is that in gentrification, the black and brown people, they always get kicked out to make
right,
place for something more expensive.
right.
It's like this, it does go back to capitalism and it's always going like I did this at my work at a startup I used to work at. This is kind of the kind of criticism of tech. We want to disrupt everything. We want to make everything better. We want to create a better service and make previous industries obsolete. That was what I did managing a territory and basically trying to disrupt a specific sector of healthcare. I preach the way you guys are doing it is wrong. The way we are doing it is better. Outsource it to us, and the spoils of that is that a lot of these smaller medical clinics would close down. These are already struggling, but we were forcing them to close down and getting all of their workers to work for us. We are starving them of talent,
Right.
making them use our product. And I've never been to the areas that where never been to. I've been in Chicago actually, so that's why I was good in Chicago, but I've never been in Detroit. More and more, our target was to go for and poor cities
So
so that we
basic.
can starve out these clinics that are already struggling. And these are business owners, small business owners. And we starve them
Right.
out so that they can come into a one size fits all solution so that we can produce, make
Right.
money off of it.
That's
Yeah.
that's pretty much like just like one of the like a business model, right? It's
It's a
that
business
this is
model.
it's a business model. Obviously, you know,
Essentially, but people don't look at this is what the
right.
byproduct is. People don't look at these are business owners that have been closed down because of us.
Right.
This
They
is
just think
why
it's
a
like,
lot of
oh, a
business people
business
don't
is
have
running
ethics.
out. Mhm.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So,
In
mhm.
actuality, these are spoils of war that we don't look at when we're
Mm.
in this urge for money, for
Right.
success, and
Okay.
for the sake of capitalism and efficiency.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of capitalism, I know Kemp wanted to talk about this, and I told him I was going to give him a piece of this pie. So, I mean,
So,
speaking of capitalism, right? There's, yeah, I told you, dude. You brought it up, and I was like, I told you to save it for the podcast, so I want you to talk about it a little bit. So, speaking of capitalism, right? Corporations and all of this matter. So, from a non like political science background and like non business background, UG. So, like, I understand. I want to let someone who isn't necessarily in that background give like their own opinion. So like in terms of Kemp, right? The reason why we talked about this earlier in the podcast was corporations, right? How they're taking their stance in this movement and how they are, supporting the movement, whether they actually do genuinely believe and support this movement, or it's more of the performative virtue signaling kind of thing. So I mean, the reason why you brought this up, right? Because, in our conversation, right? Disneyland pledged $5 million to in the support, 2 million for the shoot, what was it? I wrote it down. I did not write it down,
well, I mean, the
but
main
yeah.
idea is that they're pledging money for Black Lives Matter causes,
Hmm.
and what I told Neron was that now I'm pretty indifferent with these large corporations when they're donating money nowadays, because I'd rather have them take action, do something else, like actually use their influence for to actually get stuff done rather than talking with their wallet and having someone else do it. I think corporations probably have a will probably get more done if they actually take things into their own hands, but that's not happening.
Right, right. Because it's basically them saying it's like, I was like, oh, we have power, we have money, we have influence, but we don't want to put in the work. So
Right.
it's like shelling out like the quote unquote bare minimum resource of just money, right? Because that's what our system is founded upon. That's capitalism, of course, money, duh.
Ah,
And then they
I'm
shell it
only at
out.
the problem.
Yeah, they shell it out back to the quote unquote community, right? Sure they're supporting the cause, but it's basically telling the community, go solve it yourself.
Right.
Like
Yes,
right, because
that's a great point.
it's like we oh yeah sure we acknowledge it. Here's some money. We don't want to look bad, but we're not going to directly do anything other than give you a little bit more power, a little bit more support, a little piece of the pie, a crumb even. Disneyland, $5 million, dude. That's a drop in their bucket, dude. That is nothing. They can make that in a day.
Exactly.
I want to add to that on the more diabolical side is that recently LAPD said that they would decrease LAPD funding by, I believe, $150 million.
That is, yeah, that's correct. That was the headline that was going around the past
Yeah.
week for us in LA.
And then when we looked at the numbers, 100 million out of their $3 billion current budget, and the mayor was on the track to vote for a budget increase for next year. So to say we're going to decrease 100 million from their budget, but then also in theory can negotiate for a higher budget next year to make up for that amount,
Right.
nothing is done. It's all performative, and it's basically just performative money laundering.
It's like,
And just
yeah, it's like we'll decrease the money, but percentage-wise, nothing's changing.
so that's the most diabolical case of putting money where your mouth is, because we've been, and I think, and you brought up a great point about it's giving money back to community and telling them how to do it. And that's, yes, that's one way to do it, but you're putting a lot of onus on the community leaders when community leaders and actual leaders need to be at the same table and
Right,
It's
talk.
like,
right,
yeah,
right.
it's like if you give money to someone to do something, wouldn't it make more sense for you to do it yourself? It'll have more impact if you do it yourself rather than having this
Or
having this guy who has
and,
less influence in you.
and to be even more fantastic, if you are a great leader and there are, and I'll give a couple examples, is that if you are a great leader, you will say, I will use my voice to amplify Black person's voice, and they will sit at the table with me and they will tell me what they want me to do, and I will use my power to give them that voice, because it's lending them your privilege. You're
Right.
bringing awareness. You're giving them a voice that would normally be ignored. And I say this because we're seeing a lot of leaders taking a bigger stance, a lot of corporate leaders. And one thing I want to highlight is Alex Ohani. I think that's his last name, Alex from Reddit. He was one of the founders of Reddit, and of anti-violence, a lot of anti-Black Lives Matter stuff. And him as a CEO and co-founder, he said, "Daughter, the white man is Serena Williams," and
Yeah.
he said, "As a white man with a Black daughter, I cannot buy a company and allow them to do this. I am trying in my listening to me, and this is showing that the company has this culture that I cannot."
Oh shoot. Oh dang it. Why? Why did this have to happen now? Damn, we were in a good conversation, guys. I am so sorry. Looks like a little bit of an internet issue. Let's see. My Discord did crash. Oh no. I'm sorry, guys. This was having a really good conversation. Kemp, I DC'd. I'm messaging Kemp right now. Fuck. Damn it. Why did this have to happen right now of all times? I'm so sorry, guys. Hello?
Yep.
Sorry, I heard about a good chunk of what you said, but I cut out for the last like minute and a half. But
I mean, basically, the Reddit CEO, Alex Ohani, the husband of Serena Williams, just had this most upstanding action that he took that was the best combination of money, symbolism in his leadership,
mhm.
and honestly, a best show of love, because he is a vocal white male ally fighting for his family, fighting for his wife. And that was the most courageous act, his place of privilege, of love.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool, cool, cool. I know, Kemp, I think you had another question that you wanted to bring up on the podcast. I don't remember what it was.
Not at the moment. If it comes back to me, I'll let you know.
Okay, cool.
Mm.
Um, so let me uh transition this. So in terms of like you said, actions and influence, and corporations or even just people, taking an action and having a stance and doing small steps to move forward, right? Some of these corporations are trying to take action, right? They're trying to take a step forward, but obviously they represent lots of people, a lot of employees in
Mm,
their organizations, and and some of their employees, representatives, or people who work under them, might not be on the same page. And in these times, you know, whether they are racist or non-supporters or whatever you want to categorize them as, right? Um, it's showing that at the beginning of this podcast, right, Yoonji? So you said you were being optimistic about like how people are being more aware and understanding this kind of issues, right? I wanted to bring up the devil's advocate point of that right now in saying that you know they're on the flip side that they're we're being more optimistic about people being educated. The opposite is now we understand that there's still a huge divide in this country. Um, I wouldn't say more so than ever because there's always been a divide of depending on where you draw the line
mm,
on the topic, right? Because it's like
true.
we always think that it's those old white politicians or
Mm,
like
mm.
these quote unquote rednecks from the south, right? But then there's people who
Their everyday lives.
right, you could be
Yeah.
another person right across the street. I can be ordering a drink next to a guy in the Starbucks who could be a complete
Yeah.
racist and who's my age and I wouldn't know a damn thing. But,
Yeah.
because the world is so interconnected by the internet, duh, it's showing that there are communities and locations of people or just even individuals that have so many different views from what I
Mm,
might have or what you might have, and like just because they have the opportunity, they have the option to learn about these uh, issues, these greater projects, movements, and whatnot, it doesn't
mm.
mean that they're going to accept it, right? One
Right.
example of like the corporation organizational movements was, let's say, um, one example. I have two. First example is a little smaller because it's a little niche. NASCAR, right? They're like, oh, NASCAR.
Mm,
We'll take a step. We'll ban Confederate flags from being flown at races. We're gonna ban Confederate flags. I'm like, all right, cool.
mm,
One of the drivers in the lower NASCAR series is like, nah, I can't. People have their right to wave their flags. I can't drive in this NASCAR anymore, right? So there was
mm,
that. And then as of recently, I would say last week, um, it was the NFL, right? Was it Drew Brees, the quarterback? I want to say it was Drew Brees.
Yeah, who's a player?
Yeah, he was a main quarterback. Yeah, I think it's Drew
Okay,
Brees. I want to say it's Drew Brees.
we'll just say it's a player.
Let's say it's a player. He was a quarterback on a NFL team, and he was talking about like I would you someone asked him on an AMA on a live stream or something. It's like, would you ever take a knee or support those who take a knee
yeah,
during
mm,
during the flag and national anthem? And he said, no, I don't support that because I don't share the same views. And someone on his team, right, his same teammate was saying, nah, dude, I can't support you. Like how are you gonna be on my team and be the captain and talk about the brotherhood that we share and then not support each other, especially in times like these? I'm like,
yep,
dude, that's
exactly.
crazy. Like I was
People
saying
are
it
calling each other out.
exactly
People
because there's
are
so much.
making it known that there's hidden racist, white supremacy views in their organization and they're outing it. I'm seeing it in the sports organizations
Right.
that I'm in. I'm seeing it everywhere. People are having a voice and voicing it and saying, no racist. We don't care. And that response to the NASCAR person that says, oh, I'm leaving, NASCAR on Twitter replied back, we had to Google who you were. They don't even know you. Why are you announcing you're leaving? You're so insignificant, and what your opinion is, it's so insignificant. Basically, NASCAR's clapback to the racists.
Right, right, right.
Like, oh, no Confederate flags? Fine, I'm gone. It's like NASCAR's like, who are
Who
you?
are you? Like,
This is a
get your
Wendy's. How do
sorry
you?
looking ass out of my
Get into the
sport.
house. What the fuck are you? Get cheap out. No, this is a good thing because once you say none of it, people are gonna weed themselves out naturally. They're gonna say, "I'm so angry, my freedom of speech," and we're gonna be like, "Ring, ring, ring! Here's a fucking racist." Get them out. Then all the rest of us, we fucking rejoice.
Yeah, dude, get your Karen
What's
sounding ass
happening?
out of here.
Yeah. No, no, no. Yeah, this is reverse Karen. We're like, we talk to the manager. And then the manager, and then it's like, I am Karen. The manager told me you have to get out. No nurses allowed. Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah, I mean that's
So it's
what I
very
wanted to bring up.
self-selecting.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think that there's also so much going on in terms of like these kind of larger corporations taking a stance. Um,
yeah.
yeah, I mean I think that was mostly what I want to talk about, but then I also wanted to talk about what you said about like um, relating to capitalism and
Mhm.
small businesses and that kind of business model. There also I want to talk about relating that back to like the protests and the riots, right?
Yeah.
Um, just as a time check, it is 9:20. Okay, we got like a couple more minutes. We still got time. So basically, you know how some of these protests, these riots are,
Mhm.
looting and destroying businesses that are usually small businesses, right? Outside of like Target or whatever. Target doesn't count. But like, these are businesses that are in communities that
Mhm.
that we're supposed to be representing. I mean, obviously, not all rioters, not all looters are part of the part of the peaceful protests, and I will admit, not all peaceful protesters are peaceful and might have
Mhm.
participated in the rioting and the looting. Whatever. Vice versa, there's always an exception.
Mhm.
But the point is saying that going back to your point of like small minorities, small family businesses, small owned businesses,
Mhm.
is that there's always these scenarios where how do I say this, that
Mhm.
someone I brought this up last point, that someone's livelihood is always at stake. You don't
Yeah.
know.
So I say so. Sorry to cut you off, but
Yeah.
I have experience in this. My parents are small business owners, small minority owners,
Mhm.
and our store was graffitied. Their store, had their windows broken down amidst the Long Beach protests. I will keep on saying that they're protests. That looting is a small percentage, and looting is a byproduct of people's anger. And I
Yeah,
do
yeah,
not expect an angry protester to know that if it's a minority-owned business, if they're
Right.
just sorting out their anger, and I'm looking this from a big point of view, that what is causing that person to be extremely fucking angry to do that. I want to focus on that we need systematic change so that no one ever feels
Right.
like doing that again, because the monetary value is that we had business insurance was a small inconvenience that we had to do to call them, sort it out, whatever. But that that got rebuilt immediately.
Mhm.
No
Right.
one can
Right.
bring
Right.
back the life of George Floyd and the many other lives that are killed
Right.
without a second thought because of the culture of white supremacy.
Mhm.
So that's what I say to it. And there were a lot of good videos that really focus on the majority of looting, which is a small percentage of the actual
Mhm.
protests. I've gone to many protests, and honestly, they're all peaceful. And
Mhm.
a lot of the incitement comes from the police inciting it. And there's
Right.
multiple civil rights violations in there. And the rule is, and there was a video that had a woman that eloquently put, look, looting is in Targets, CVS, Walgreens. See what they're looting diapers, looting essentials. They're looting the places where they can
Mm.
get food for their
Right.
family. And it's like, maybe this is one person's opportunity to feed the family. I don't know. I don't want to focus on that. What I see the looting and protesting is all that it's a byproduct people having enough and the byproduct of them not having their civil rights.
Right. Because
Um,
to add on to that, I don't know if I'm sure you have Yoonji, but I don't know Kemp or just any listeners. Have you guys heard that one Trevor Noah's um bit when this first came out about a week ago?
No,
I love
I
Trevor
think not.
Noah. Yeah, he's a very great commentator.
Yeah. So I was listening to his bit, right? To his I don't know if it was for the Daily Show. I want to say it was because it was part of the channel. But he was also saying that damn it, I wrote this down. Where is it? Uh, did I not write this down? I'm so sad. No, 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 I wrote this down.
Uh-huh.
Oh no,
What
Kemp,
is it?
right? I just didn't quote it. I didn't put his name next to it. Kemp, because you saw it in the chat when I sent you the notes earlier. It was
Right.
there's no right way to protest because that's what protest is, right?
Oh,
It
yeah.
cannot be right because you're protesting the thing that's stopping you, right? So, man,
That's
and
exactly it.
yeah, and
And
like
look
just
at the Constitution as kind of Constitution is all the rules that government has to give you. Those are all the rights that you can live by. Once a government fucks up, takes away one of our civil rights without going through due process or the legal way, do that, have
mhm,
broken a social contract, then that's when protests happen in whatever way that people feel fit that makes them feel fair. Again, this is the thing with inequality in the world. Everyone's form of protest is different. I am not looting because I am in a very privileged position.
mhm.
I don't have to. I can peacefully protest because I don't have that much anger. Imagine if all of us have the ability the same as me. You have the calmness of going on a podcast to talk to people about it. Because I know that there are people that uh, traumatized of even walking down the street. They look over their shoulder because they're black and they're scared that they're going to be called that they're gonna have someone call the police on them for just mere suspicion in their implicit bias.
Right.
Yeah,
Man, that's there's just
So wait,
yeah.
so
Go ahead.
I just want to get it clear. Are you how do you how exactly do you feel about the looters?
I think that it's a product. It's their form of protest. That's how I'm seeing it. I'm not focusing on that. Percentage wise, it's actually a very small number. And
Mhm.
I've done some research on this. The early insiders in Minneapolis, in one of the worst, and in all of the other highly targeted looting areas, have been shown that it's with infringed groups. So, like insurgent FBI that incite it, or white supremacy groups that are flown in there to incite violence and to start that early traction of protest, have it be deemed as looting, as a riot. But all of the instances where I've seen protesters getting arrested in SF in Oakland, it was because police have used it's because the police have violated civil rights first by imposing a curfew, by cutting off certain roads to trap protesters and to arrest them and to illegally detain them. The more we see instances of bad behavior from police, more people are going to protest and the more that looting is going to happen because again looting is a form of protest. Okay,
Right. Right.
the more that's going to happen, you stop cause of all of that police brutality, all the protests will stop, all of the looting afterwards will stop. But we cannot stop protesting until things get done, and we're seeing the protests working, right? So
Right. Right.
SF, they released the mandates. The charges got elevated to second degree. Protesters are not going to stop now because we are finally getting them to do their job, not even at the bare minimum. Okay, this is because people are outside and they're vocal, and we're outside of politicians' homes and city halls and telling them, we're watching you. We're watching here peacefully. I have my big sign over here saying my views, but I'm sitting here peacefully. We're watching you to make sure you do your job. Because as soon as we turn around, we're not going to trust you to do your job because we've turned around all these fucking
Right,
years.
right.
As soon as we turn around, oh, you're gonna let businesses open again. You're gonna put the festivals open again, and we're gonna be drowned out from this problem again. Okay, so yeah, the protesting will continue to happen peacefully if the police keep it peaceful. If Trump doesn't call the National Guard and send the military on us, remember, we don't have the guns, cops do. Cops hold all of the modes of violence when they come up to us. The
Mm,
same thing is happening, same thing that happened in my elementary school growing up to deter Latinos from being bad, that they bring a cop with guns, with their full batons, with their handcuffs, and show all the students and put them there. Doing the same thing with protesters. There's bringing up the military in full
right.
riot gear and
It's
tear gas, showing, hey, you better stay peaceful. We're going to try to push you and see how far we can take it because we're bored. We're police officers and we're bored. So we got to entertain ourselves
right.
because the
It's
culture already
mhm,
doesn't respect protesters. So, yeah, they're having a display of violence
mhm.
against protesters. We only have our signs, we only have our voice, and we only have our bodies. We do not have guns. We are not carrying guns.
Right.
We and the
So
protesters are policing each
mhm.
other and making sure everyone is on the right page of we are here for a peaceful protest, for a demonstration. We are sitting here and we are just watching the politicians and putting the extra pressure that they are doing their jobs. Basically, we are being the police to the people in power.
Mhm. That's why it
Um,
goes. Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I like to think more like or like supervising them or something.
Yep, yep, supervising them, whatever it takes, because we're not doing a good job supervising each other.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Someone has to speak up, and it's going to be the collective amount. It's going to be the collective people because 20,000 because about I would say on top of my head, 2,000 people are in the downtown SF area almost daily in front of City Hall,
Damn.
watching the mayor that is doing a great job. But we are supporting her now because she has told us what she wanted to do and shared her experience. Now we're supporting her. But if she didn't do anything, we would be watching her like a hawk.
Right. So I mean, just to go back, it's like what you said, like the police. It's a show of force. It's an
It's a
intimidation
show of
tactic.
force.
But then it's like that's the whole point. That's the whole point. Like, how are you gonna do that when the
He
whole
wants
point of
to
this?
intimidate us into silence. The
Exactly. It's an
same way
intimidation
they brought
tactic.
police officers into my elementary school to silence them from talking
Right.
about the injustice and racism against them as Latino students. It's a show of
Right.
force to be like, hey, I have the guns to end your life, so shut up. It's us with the privilege to be like, hey, we were given this privilege to be above
Mhm.
that. So now
Right.
we're going to fight for the people that don't have the privilege to get in your face the same way a tiny East Asian, privileged, educated, rich SF resident can do. So this is my power as a protester. I'm like, what are you going to do?
Right. Of course. Of
What
course.
are the cops going to do?
Exactly. That's also it's the dynamic is also just interesting because um like I said from a podcast I was listening to, it's like the police or just even like armed forces in the country, right?
Yeah, you can't do that.
well, not just that, but it's like you're expected, right, to n- to do the minimum of your job, right, to do your job right, and then that's why people are angry about like police brutality and just like even people's rights, within when interacting with the police. But then someone said on a podcast is saying that like just like just like let's say the military or some police cases that they try to instill like when they're in police op like they said, like this is just an example. This isn't a quote. The person wasn't speaking on the podcast, wasn't necessarily a police officer, but this is what they heard from their stories. Um, they were basically saying it's like they try to instill like like how I said, like you try to instill a brotherhood within
Yeah.
like your own job
Mm.
within your force, and then it's like when you try and out someone that you work with that that might have been in the force for years, even though you're just like a new cop trying to do good, right? There's always these cases where it's like you always try to cover up someone's trying to cover up something for the sake of the familiarity of having it there. Um,
Yeah.
that's why it's like some of
Upkeep the
these
status
cases.
quo.
Exactly. It's just like, look, this is what the police have been doing for however many years, and they want to keep it this way because they don't want to change. That's one of the big issues that we do want to change. That's why we want to defund the police or abolish the police, however you want to state it, right? That's one of the main reasons. Like we want reform. That's what people want. It's like this is an issue.
I argue
Mhm.
against that. People want reform because it's the most comfortable thing.
Mhm.
But another school of thought for progressives, especially, and from our people directly, is that they don't want reform because the culture is already rotten. System
Right.
that it was built on
It.
being an evolution of
Mhm.
slave hunters that is ingrained in their culture, and it needs to be uprooted and instilled and rebuilt again. So this is a very radical view. This is a very revolutionist view. It's not gaining a lot of traction because a lot of people want to be reformists. They want to give it a chance. They want to work within the system. It's like how often changes happen from within. Usually
Right.
very slow.
Because it's
Cast
so deeply
out
rooted,
the
right?
dissenters.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right. Because
Cast out the
it's
dissenters to uphold the culture. What do you have to do? Cancel that culture.
right.
Ooh, cancel culture. That was really cool.
Cancel the police. I'm just kidding.
Cancel the police. Seriously.
Yeah.
How Gen Zers are doing it, being very scrappy with their marketing and be like, let's cancel the police. Then with tech guys, it's let's disrupt the police.
Hmm.
With
Interesting.
anarchists and with actual black people,
Fuck. Fuck the police.
abolish it. Abolish it.
Oh my
Like
god.
they try to abolish, like try to say that they abolish slavery, abolish police, abolish
Right.
slave catchers, because that's
Mhm.
essentially what they think they are.
Right. Right. This is just it's like I said last week, like the more we try to, especially for me, someone who's just like who slowly learns about it more and more, right? And like for people who aren't as into it as others are, who aren't as passionate or as educated as some others are, there's always just this how do I say this? Is always just this iceberg type of level. I think
Yeah.
yeah, because it's like
Yeah.
we see things on a very surface level, and we think, what if
Yeah.
we do this, right? If
Yeah.
we do this, it'll solve it, and then we realize, oh,
Yeah.
there's another
So it's
layer.
called, yeah, so that's the kind of debate right now in policymaking and
Mhm.
kind of just like discussions going on. Incrementalism, which is
Mhm.
changing things incrementally and taking
Mm.
away
Interesting.
police's power, which we've done before. We've instituted body cameras, but no one is supervising it, right? They found
Right.
ways around it. It's incrementally putting rules to limit. And abolishing it is uprooting the entire system because we've deemed it as, we can put as many rules as we can. The fundamental roots of it is that
Right.
we
Because
need to redirect it to other resources that are proven to be good, like conflict mediation, de-escalation techniques, mental health services, education. And then that's what kind of defunding the police means. Defunding the police in its current institution.
mhm.
Oh, she
Oh,
cut off.
I think she cut out. I was like, I thought that was me again.
Mm.
Oh no, looks like you just cut out, dude. Oh
Hey,
man,
Lamau.
I don't know why it still says she's in Discord. Was I still in here when I DC'd?
No, you disconnected.
Oh, or, oh, she's
Oh,
back. Oh,
Wait, hello, I'm back.
hello, you're
yep.
back. What happened?
Okay, yeah, yeah.
You're
So
good? Okay.
yeah, I put my other AirPod in, but yeah, but that's just kind of it's just two theories because people starting out in this just learning about race politics. I know it's very confusing.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my friends that I talked about, he is a black man, and we're getting very close with just sharing our experiences with it, and he's telling me a lot, but he has to be quiet because he lives in Florida, and a lot of his clients for work are Trump supporters. He needs the
Oh.
business, he needs to survive, so he cannot say anything. So I told him, hey, I'm going on a podcast with some friends. What do you want me to tell them? Because I know you don't have a voice right now. I do. What do you want me to tell people from your experience? And he said, at the end of it, like, I don't care what mode it is. I don't I don't care how complicated the conversation gets, as long as we understand fundamentally that it's not black against white. It's us against racism. It's us
Mm.
against white supremacy. I'm like,
Well,
you don't have the privilege to be angry about it as much as I am. Because I'm very vocal because I know that nothing would have happened to me. But for him, it's his livelihood. The difference between him putting food on his table
Right.
and
Right.
being homeless.
It's a completely different situation. Like,
Yeah.
of course,
I'm
of
like,
course.
will tell me whatever you want to say. And then like you just have something very little to say. And I'm like, I took it as a sign that you're tired. You don't have the energy to debate. You don't have the energy to have philosophical, theoretical discussions. You just want action. And that is what I want to communicate with people. I'll tell you what Black people want, and then they will share what they want as an action.
Mm.
Because let's face it, they don't have a lot of education too. They're not that eloquent. But what sparks their passionate words is their authenticity for wanting something.
Mhm. Right.
This is where I usually feel very meek in my words, but when it comes to social justice, I suddenly found my voice. That's what I hear from a lot of Black activists that come out. I would normally not do well in a business setting. No, when it talks about their rights and their liberties, they are the most poetic people in the world. We have to listen to them, especially when we don't know what to do. We have to ask a Black person, what do you want me to do? Because if we don't recognize our privilege, they will tell us what our privilege is because they will look at us and be like, that person is so fucking lucky. Yeah.
Right. Right. That's man. That more or less brings it like full circle for this episode.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. That was, like I said, there's so many levels on where someone
Yeah. So
can
many.
be self-aware and just
Yeah.
being aware of their environment. Um,
yeah, you have to be a pretty unself-aware if you don't understand that this isn't about whites versus black.
Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be like living under like some kind of rock.
Fucking the
Yeah,
biggest.
exactly. And you know what? That's kind of the experience of a lot of people. They just
Yeah,
don't have the opportunity to have the privileges of moving to big cities or going to a college
Exactly.
away from, or even going to college. It's like, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
was it helpful? Like, did it help and share some stuff? I don't know. I just want to make sure that I'm saying the right things that people are understanding. Yeah.
Cam?
that's fine.
Oh,
Cool.
okay. I mean, yeah, for me, I think for me it helped a lot because like you said, I knew you had a background in it, um, of both like being an activist, political science, and just having the different life experiences that you have and understand like how passionate and involved you are in the projects and the communities that you've been a part of. It, it it's much appreciated, especially for me. Like I said, it's for someone who's still learning about uh, these kind of scenarios and larger issues at hand that should be tackled and aren't necessarily should be done alone. But I think it's definitely been helpful for me to hear from your own experiences and your own stories. I mean, I really appreciate it. So thank you.
No, thank you for having me. And at the end of the day, people from my point of view, it's like I always like to say, and this is my favorite saying that I got from show that there's a seat for everyone at the table in this fight. There's not a
Mm,
seat at the table in the corporate world when you try to have power, be rich. there's a seat at this table for human rights. And every activist that I've met, every person that I have met, has been warmly welcoming, warmly open to sharing me their experience. They're delighted to help anyone at any stage of their journey just simply know more. Because the most powerful thing in learning this is, for me, is going out to protests and hearing demonstrators talk and give speeches. Second is having Black friends where I can talk about this, where they can tell me their experience head on, and where I can ask them, what can I do for you? Asking people directly is the best way. At the end of the day, you can make it as complicated as possible by learning stuff, but asking them directly is a surefire way to know exactly what to do.
Right. All right.
Don't be shy. Everyone's friendly.
There you go. There you go. So there we
That's
go.
that's arguable.
Yep, there it is. I mean, so we've gone for about almost an hour 40, about an hour 40 or so. So I think this is a good point to wrap it up. But before we completely wrap it up, do you guys have any like last minute questions or topics or comments that you guys just want to put out there? Kemp, you first.
um, no, it's just like everyone's gonna have an opinion, and then everyone's gonna somehow try to challenge you. It's, don't know if they're ignorant or not. But as long as you can like talk it out peacefully,
Yeah,
logically,
yeah,
logically,
sure. And
should be
then,
fine.
then what I think is that as long as we remember our fundamentals, fundamental value of being compassionate, of being kind, understanding that
Yeah, that's
doing the right thing. As long as we understand our fundamentals, we have to come together on what we agree on, not focus on debating or being a devil's advocate,
Mm,
yeah.
having objections, because right now is not the time to talk about it. It's a time to do things while things are hot, while we have people's attentions. As I always say, action is always better than inaction. And people have debated this for hundreds of years.
right.
Now, what they're asking for is action in any form. And a lot of Black people are tired. A lot of POC are tired and traumatized by being challenged with these theoretical questions from people. We want people to educate themselves because we've dealt with the trauma growing up in our lives and achieve success. I would say that like a lot of those buildups of overt racism in my professional life, in my school life, it amounted to me taking action right now. That's trauma that I would have to explain over and over to people. That when you've explained it for a long time, it's kind of like tired of explaining. I'm just going to ask people what I need them to do.
Right.
That is what Black people are asking right now. I'm tired of defending myself. Why does my life need to be defended? Why do I need to defend my life when I'm asking for help? Be alive. Yeah.
Yeah. Kemp, did you have one more thing?
Um,
That's it.
Okay,
Good.
because I thought you were going to say something else. Okay. All right. So with that, if not to end on a good note, to end on a note, everyone keep on learning, keep on
Partying
grinding,
on.
keep
Keep
on
being
keeping.
Do what you need to do to learn more,
Yep.
grow, or even just survive the next day. Like, all about survival out there.
Yep. Just keep on learning, keep on having an open mind, and keep on having that conversation. So,
that,
with that
that, that,
said, oh yeah, go ahead.
I think that is most important thing is to be open minded.
There you go. So with that said, also, all of this still going on in the context of COVID-19 in the background. Everyone continue to be safe, be
Yes,
smart,
we,
and
all organizers, we do strict social distancing. Social distancing. We pass out masks. Something that Trump didn't do for the past 6 months.
oh
We
my
pass out free
gosh,
masks.
they're so much
Pass
better.
out free gloves. Oh fuck it. Yeah, sorry. I'm a comedian at heart, so I'll try to communitize this situation. Yeah, so we're being very safe and we're taking care of each other.
There
If
you
we see
go.
someone without a mask, you're like, put that fuck shit on.
Oh my
That shit
god.
on.
There you
Yeah, yeah.
go. All right.
Camp extra. Camp extra mass. Here's some fruit snacks. Stay hydrated.
Fruit snacks.
Be
Dude.
safe.
Goddamn. That's a
We
good
do
one.
that.
Yeah, dude. In the news, I love watching the people that are just handing out the food.
Oh yeah, those great.
Yeah.
Those are great. Those people are so nice.
Yeah.
But like
Ah.
I said, with that, thank you once again, Yoonji and Kemp, for being on this week's podcast. Um, Breaking Point Part 3 may or may not be on the table, but we'll see. Obviously, if I promo it out as Breaking Point Part 3, you will know. But with that, like I said, everyone be safe. Keep on doing you. And if you're watching on YouTube, because I know the stream died about halfway through, my apologies. My internet is not apologetic to me though. Um,
Don't
thank
apologize. Don't
No,
apologize.
no, no. My internet needs to apologize.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And you Comcast. Comcast.
No, Spectrum? Is that Comcast? Yeah, it is.
You
Um,
Spectrum.
yeah. So,
Oh,
no, it's
okay.
Time
Not
Warner.
yours.
No, it's Time Warner.
You Time Warner.
No, I don't
That
remember.
shit
Whatever.
too.
Anyways, thank you for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, obviously, if you got to this far, you are only on YouTube. Um, Keep on the lookout for more podcasts. If you have any topics that we want to talk about on future podcasts, let me know. On July 4th, don't say "Go America." You say "All countries matter." There you go. That's a little meme that I read. But with that, thank you again, everyone, for the supports. And if you have any other stuff that you want to send over my way to keep me educated, keep me learning, just go ahead and DM me in the comments or in personal social media. So with that said,
Oh.
thank you, and yeah, see you. See you. We
Bye.
out.
Uh,